Well, welcome everyone to the Brisbane City Council meeting of Thursday, January 16th. And I would like to call the meeting to order and to ask you to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Please note for the record that all council members are present.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call for the adoption of the agenda. I would like to make one change. I'd like to close in memory of Betty Salmon and also in support and sympathy for the fire victims of Australia. With that, does anyone else have any changes?
Move adoption as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That moves us on to oral communications number 1. I do ask that these comments are on items that are not on the agenda, and to please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. The city staff will have a timer, and before we do that, we can report out for closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council met in closed session to discuss certain real estate and litigation risks, and staff was given direction as to how to follow up and report back. Thank you.
Great, thank you. With that, I'll call up the first oral communication, Marta Bookbinder.
Good evening, council members. My name is Marta Bookbinder, and I am president of the League of Women Voters of North and Central San Mateo County. I reside in Colma, California, at 520 Midway Avenue. So I would like to come to you today, as I am going to all the city councils in our north central area of San Mateo, to ask you if you would consider doing a proclamation, and I have the request, about the 19th Amendment centennial that will be happening all through this year, where the women got the right to vote. At the same time, the League of Women Voters was also founded in the same year as preparation to implement the 19th Amendment that was finally ratified and signed into law in August of 1920. So I have some information here. I would like to ask if you would consider doing a proclamation to celebrate with all of us that wonderful adventure that we all got into to get everyone, or every woman in the United States to vote. So I'm sure you have no questions, so I'd like to enter it for your record.
Thank you. If you could give that to the clerk, that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
How you doing? Yes.
So the next speaker is Radu Mihaela.
I live in Brisbane, and I would like to speak on sustainability and a sustainability proposal for the Baylands. So about a month ago, UPC presented their plan for the Baylands development, and Anthony and I would like to propose a suggestion, or to suggest something to the City Council to consider for energy sustainability. And I believe Anthony has a very inspirational story, and I'll cede my 5 minutes to him so he can present for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Excuse me, staff. We have a flickering bulb that's flickering here. Is there something we can do to either turn that off, or I think it just started when the lights dimmed? Thank you.
Hi. So my name is Anthony Walker. I'm a resident here in Brisbane. Okay, things are moving. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the things that Radu and I have been discussing recently regarding the Brisbane Baylands Sustainability Plan, and as that pertains to renewables, battery storage, and self-sustainable energy going forward for the city. So the Brisbane Baylands development, their stated zero net energy goal, we really feel is not aggressive enough. If I'm not mistaken, the plan currently aims to account for 50% of its electrical power from solar and to cover the rest in the form of credits, with no mention of battery storage. So the net energy concept, it sort of treats the grid like a battery, which it really isn't. And any savings are completely dependent on the utility's pricing models at that time, and, of course, the continued solvency of that utility. And none of this actually helps with energy security for the community or with peak demand for the grid. Now, typically, credits mean some kind of a carbon offset, by funding the equivalent renewable project somewhere else. Our contention is, why would we not just keep that same amount of money in the community and try to push ourselves closer to actual zero emissions? There's also the issue of what happens in the future when renewable energy is the standard, is the rule, not the exception, and offsets are harder and harder to come by as time goes by. So relying on credits to offset a large portion of the development, this carbon footprint is just not really a long-term solution in our view. And so we feel we should really aim to take the city of Brisbane, as self-sustaining and energy independent as possible. I wanted to take you just through my own experience a little bit. This is our house here in Brisbane. My wife and I moved in about 3 years ago, installed a 6.2 kilowatt rooftop solar array in June 2018, and then 2 Tesla Powerwall batteries in May 2019. That's about 27 kilowatt hours of storage. We also switched to all electric vehicles in late 2018. All home appliances upgraded to electric except hot water. That's coming soon. And also switched to a ductless multi-zone heat pump, which has helped us go all electric there as well and improve the air quality quite a bit. So benefits that we've seen, we are able to directly use solar energy that we've stored during the day at night when we get home. The system essentially turns our home's electrical grid into a microgrid that only takes power from PG&E after it's used up any solar energy. Fully charged, our power walls provide about 2 to 3 days of power for the house, and if the next day is sunny, they just get topped off and keep going. And what that's meant for us is that our home is now majority self-powered from about early March to the end of October. So that's fully 9 months out of the year. We're really not drawing anything at all from PG&E. And this has the added benefit of if there's ever a grid failure, we're covered. There's no need for a backup generator in case of emergency. So these are some actual numbers that we've been seeing. This is starting in May 2019 when we put in the battery storage until the end of the year. Home energy usage for this period for us was 98% offset by solar, and fully 70% self-powered. That's including 2 winter months, as I said, from March to October. It's much closer to 100%. You can see the yellow bar is solar there, and the gray, which in most months is sort of down below the line, is grid. Right. So, right. What about the costs? Right. So what we're paying, we pay $139 a month for the solar panels. That's a 0-down 20-year loan in our case. That's pretty equivalent to what we used to pay PG&E. Our average monthly bill is about $129 before that. We pay about $101 a month for the Powerwalls. That's a 0-down 10-year loan. And that's about what we used to pay to gas up the car. So, by my calculations, I'd say we're at least breaking even, and prices have come down quite a bit since. So, what that does for us is it locks in our monthly costs for home energy and for transport for the next 20 years. With the way things fluctuate and what's going on with PG&E, it's hard to know what that's even going to look like in 20 years. Right. So our contention is if a small 1920s era home here in Brisbane can become this energy efficient through retrofits, then Brisbane Baylands, a brand new development, can go much, much further by pooling their resources and working with a blank canvas. This is one solution that I think may be of interest here. So on the left, those are the units that we have in our home, the Powerwall. Power Pack and Mega Pack are, it's the same battery technology, just in a larger configuration, so that the Power Pack is essentially a weatherproof container equal to about 16 Powerwalls with each unit. And these are going into regional utilities and large-scale commercial customers in the case of the Mega Pack, based on need, the need of the installation. I think it's important to reiterate here that this is not a future solution in need of more R&D before it becomes viable. These batteries and renewable solutions are already in use in many communities all over the world. They're here today. I've got two in my garage here in Brisbane. And they're working great. So I won't go too much into the details here, but these are 4 large-scale projects that have been built and are currently functioning, and could, I think, potentially be a model. I'll just highlight one. The solar energy plant in Kauai is sort of an interesting contract, I think, in that they didn't buy the equipment outright. They contracted with Tesla to instead buy the electricity, and Tesla installed the basically this solar energy plant, selling to the residents for 13.9 cents a kilowatt hour. So there are lots of ways to handle that. Right. So I hear you saying, "Okay, neat, but what does this have to do with the Baylands?" So we've been talking a lot about this recently. We think that this technology could present a really unique opportunity, especially with a smaller community like ours, to come close to or achieve 100% self-powered, a 100% self-powered city running on renewable energy. If designed well with battery storage in mind, the whole city could be built as essentially one large self-sustaining microgrid. This would help the community be more resilient in the face of future losses of grid power due to PG&E shutdowns, fires, natural disasters, and starting from scratch with super efficient modern building techniques and energy efficient electrical appliances, which I believe is already part of the plan, will reduce demand that much more, and make any system like this that much more useful. I had an additional thought that this could even be run, for example, by the city as a local utility or electrical cooperative, something along those lines, much as we already have water, city water in Brisbane. Raju had an interesting idea that maybe we could even have sort of a retrofit program to help local homeowners install battery storage in their own homes. There are many ways to address it. But as far as next steps, we were thinking we would really like the city's blessing to reach out to Tesla to discuss how we might be able to best meet the needs of Brisbane and the Baylands development's clean energy goals. Tesla could present to the city a plan for 100% renewable energy that's viable for the development, that would make sense for all parties involved, so that we could then submit that to the UPC for their consideration. Just another, putting some actual numbers behind it and having an actual plan in place that makes it that much more concrete and sort of another thing to consider. We would really like to push that the city not to accept weak half measures when it comes to this sort of thing, upholding the standards of our city's climate action plan. We think we can and should do much better than what's currently being proposed in the development. I think we should be aiming much higher than the regulated minimum. There are viable options out there today to go much further and to drastically reduce our city's carbon footprint and prepare Brisbane for the future. And I think we should explore all options as thoroughly as we can. I'd just like to ask in closing that I'd be more than happy to personally assist with, in any way possible, whatever makes sense. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of good information. We can't really discuss it because of the venue that you've brought this forward to us, but I think it's all very good information, and if you'd like to leave a copy of the PowerPoint with the clerk, we'd be happy to review it.
So I'm sorry, we're asking for actionable steps here. So what is the follow-up?
We can't because it's not agendized.
We cannot
So are
we
you
cannot
ready to-
discuss this. We would need to bring it on an agenda item
Okay.
in public session. So that's something that we can ask staff to work with you. And personally, I think that your first step would to be reach out to the developer before they bring a plan. Maybe you can integrate with that also.
Can you leave your contact info with, if she
Okay.
doesn't have it? So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Very good.
I think maybe also they could come to us, like a Bayland subcommittee meeting could be like a
That's true.
good place to, because the council representatives are there and the developer is at those meetings, so that might be, there's a time for public comment.
Madam Mayor, may I add something?
Sure.
I think our presenters are unaware that it's illegal for us to discuss anything that's not on the agenda. So if something is on the agenda, we can discuss it because the public is noticed about these meetings for 2 weeks before the meetings occur. So it's actually illegal for us to discuss what you've brought to us. You can present it, but we can't talk about it. Yeah. Yes.
Of course.
Yeah, but as Councilmember Davis had said, we do have a subcommittee about the Baylands, and those are public meetings too.
Yeah.
Right, and so that might be, a more appropriate place to maybe the next step as you gather your information and maybe present more examples that might be helpful to the subcommittee. Then the subcommittee can direct staff and then provide that feedback to the full council. So, but I want to say I really appreciate what you put together. You can't have a public vision unless the public comes before the council and shares, what's important to them. And I'm glad that you're engaged and that you want to get involved, and I hope that you continue to do that. So I really appreciate, what you showed us tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public who'd like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we will move on to the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve items A through F.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That approves items A through F on the consent calendar. And we'll move on to old business. Item A, consider adoption of Resolution 2020-04 through 2020-11, approving memorandums of understanding for employee groups. Staff report, please.
Yes, this is just the formality of adopting the MOUs that the City Council reviewed as part of the tentative agreements back in, I think, July. The only one that we do not have available for you tonight on this list is the fire. The fire representative was on vacation, and we were not able to get him and his representatives to sign that one. We will bring that back in February along with the police MOU. And we'll also bring back the hourly rate increase, because one of the things that you did when you approved the MOUs and the TAs back in July, you approved a 2% increase for the general employees in July, a 2% increase in January, and our hourly employees go along with the general employees or those types of increases. So we'll bring all that back to you in February.
Great, thank you. Any discussion? Questions for staff?
I have none.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolutions number 2020-04 through 2020-11 approving memorandums of understanding for employee groups.
And is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And then item B, consider approval of resolution 2020-13, updating the master pay schedule. Staff report, please.
Right. So this is just the formality of implementing the pay increases that were part of the TAs and the MOUs.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Then we move on to a public hearing. Item A, considering adoption of Resolution 2020-1, approving the addendum and general plan case, amendment case GP-1-19, implementing measure JJ. Staff report, please.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. As we all recall, GP 118 was the general plan amendment for the Baylands to add the housing and allow the development area. It was implemented and voted on by Measure JJ and approved. As part of the action on the council's approval of the GP 118 last year, it was recognized that there'd be some other cleanup amendments required to the general plan to integrate the requirements of JJ into the general plan and eliminate some potential inconsistencies within the general plan. So this amendment before you tonight is GP 1-19. It was reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission in September, and we're again recommending adoption this evening of the resolution 2020-1. I'll turn the presentation over to Lloyd Zola to walk through some of the provisions of the GPA.
Okay. So GPA 119, there are three types of changes that are being proposed. The first type are just factual updates, then incorporating GP 118, the rules for the Baylands, into the general plan. And the larger part is to revise the general plan level of service traffic standards. The basic factual updates deal with correct names, landowners, removing references to 1994 as the general plan, removing references to the 1980 general plan and alternatives that were considered in 94, renumbering policies, and some other reformatting, like some chapters had tables of contents, others didn't, so we added those. Incorporating the previous general plan amendment into the general plan included adding an introduction to the policies formally adopted by the City Council in GP 118, merging the discussion of the Northeast Bayshore sub-area into the Baylands sub-area, and then modifying other policies to make sure that there was internal consistency within the general plan. And so those are all identified in the amendment package in that annotated set of amendments. To modify the level of service standards, that's being done for a couple of reasons. First of all, starting with a mitigation measure that was in the program EIR, identifying that LOS standards and standards regarding traffic along Bayshore and at certain intersections needed to be changed because we discovered and found in that EIR that certain intersections would exceed level of service standards just due to regional traffic. And so those modifications are part of this. That package of changing the level of service standards includes identifying a new type of arterial, and those are called regional arterials, basically Bayshore Boulevard, the extension of Geneva, where we will find that the majority of traffic is regional traffic and not traffic bound to a destination necessarily within Brisbane. We are also proposing in the amendment package that the level of service standards for regional arterials be revised and removed in favor of a couple different things. One is to prepare and implement a design plan for both Bayshore Boulevard and Geneva and the Geneva extension. The idea of that design plan will be to balance the regional through movements with local traffic, being able to move around and through Brisbane, basically balancing turning movements onto and from Bayshore Boulevard with that massive regional through traffic. We would also look at requirements for new development, essentially to implement those plans, the same way that you would implement mitigation measures in an environmental impact report, and then developing a new standard for freeway off-ramps. Right now, the city is using level of service standard, and what that would be replaced with is the standard now that Caltrans is requesting being used, which is not to allow traffic exiting the freeway to back up onto the main line. That is, they really don't care how well their interchanges work as long as the main lines are kept clear, because that is really the primary safety issue. And so we would look at that change, and then in relation to the freeway interchanges, tying that to the Bayshore and Geneva design plans. I'll get to the next one here. There we go. The requirement for that design plan is in policy C1 and program C1B. Why don't you run this? 'Cause I'm not having any luck. Program C1B lays out, see, you did that really easily. Okay. Lays out the specific requirements. Along with doing the design plan, there would be a funding program put in place, so that way new development would actually be paying for the cost of improvements along Bayshore Boulevard, obviously along Geneva, with the Baylands paying for that. The idea of this is to address how the city can accommodate the regional through traffic, because a study that we had just done last year showed, depending on time of day, anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 of the traffic along Bayshore is going through the city, never stopping here. Brisbane itself is only generating, depending on time of day, 1/4 to 1/3 of the traffic on Bayshore Boulevard. And so we're looking at it, how do we maximize or improve mobility within Brisbane and at the same time accommodate that traffic. The LOS standard, level of service standard, really favors the predominant through movement. And so what we're getting in some cases is improvements. LOS is telling us to improve the intersection, to move more through traffic along Bayshore at the expense of turning movements onto and from Bayshore, as well as one of the things that will become more and more important related to transit is the ability of Brisbane residents to get across Bayshore to the Caltrain station. So we can go to the next one. And so, as I mentioned, there are a series of intersections that will fail, that will not meet the LOS standards, even with no development in the future within Brisbane. And just that regional through traffic by itself will exceed your standards. So the idea is, the other thing that occurs is, we live with Google Maps and Waze now that tell us when to get off a freeway, and for every improvement we make to move the through traffic along Bayshore, the minute that, as soon as Bayshore becomes quicker than the freeway, Google Maps and Waze tells people, get off the 101, get onto Bayshore, and until there's a new balance and congestion between Bayshore and the freeway, you lose the benefits sometimes of moving that through movement. The other example that we had talked at the Planning Commission about that LOS tends to create are things like, I hate using examples from adjacent cities, but Oyster Point and some of those big roadways that are moving lots of cars, lots of traffic, and really inhibit people walking, inhibit bicycle traffic, don't do much for transit, and so we'd be looking at developing a balance. The environmental for this, there is an addendum. You can go to the next one again. There is an addendum to the program EIR because we found that an EIR was certified for GP 118. These amendments are basically implementing GP 118 as well as the mitigation measures in that program EIR. Next. And the basic findings in that addendum are the factual updates have no impacts. They don't result in any changes in the physical environment. Incorporating GP 118 into the general plan basically the same impacts as those addressed at the programmatic general plan level in the program EIR, and revising the level of service standards and implementing that mitigation measure will have no new or substantially more severe significant impacts. And so with that, and we also know that doing this addendum for GP 119 will not affect the requirement and need to do a new project level EIR for the Baylands specific plan when that is submitted to the city. So if there are any questions, be glad to take them.
Do we have any questions for staff?
No, I have just more of a comment that, when going through the general plan process, as part of that back in 1994, and to see how much, is still in it and it's still relevant. There's a lot of stuff that was removed, but of course everything's renumbered. So I had to kind of look at it. Hey, that looks familiar, but boy, that number doesn't. And so, it shows that the work that we did 26 years ago is still relevant today, a good of it, and I think for those who went through that process, and I remember, that was my first 6 months on the council, and that's what we did, 2 and 3 meetings a week, and it was very intense, but to see how relevant it is still today it's really, it's kind of nice. It's nice because it sees the vision that, the council had at that time, and the citizens, because they were a big part of bringing this together, so anyway, thanks for your hard work, and this is a lot to undertake, so thank you.
Cliff.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, I just want to acknowledge the hard work that staff had done, as well as the Planning Commission. I like those changes to the LOS. That really makes sense. Having the 2 regional, perspectives on those 2 streets, Geneva and Bayshore. Widening Bayshore doesn't make sense. Also, like the focus on not just the car, right, but also on public transit, bicycle, pedestrian, and then addressing the cars queuing up. If any of us have been in Foster City, during rush hour, that's an everyday occurrence in certain parts of Foster City, and it must be awful for those people to deal with all the time, because you want to go to the store, or you want to go some place for your family, and you're just locked in with all those commuters trying to get onto the freeway because they've used your streets. Getting to Clark's point about the general plan. So when we had the vote before the voters, for Measure JJ, we stated various goals, all right, that we wanted to put into the general plan. But as Clark talked about, there's all these different layers within. So if you could just kind of tell us about that process, about how the specific plan has got to be consistent with the general plan, and the development agreement's got to be consistent with the general plan. So how does adding all the meat to the bones of what will be the general plan for the Baylands section?
Well, again, I think even on the last EIR, if everyone went through it quite a while ago, there's a very lengthy analysis in the land use compatibility section where literally all the policies that are related to a specific sub-area of the Baylands then we're analyze the project's compliance or lack of compliance with either of those policies was demonstrated and illustrated and discussed. We'll do a similar exercise in this particular environmental analysis as well. I think we'll have a lot more refined direction based on the passage of Measure JJ. And yeah, it'll be very clear to the community in terms of the compliance or lack thereof, and to the decision makers. So we think it's, and all the specificity that was built into the measure will make it much easier, I think, for everybody to gauge and judge the plan's consistency.
Okay, so, one of the things I was thinking of was, in the original 1994 general plan, housing was prohibited. Measure JJ now allows for the housing, and so then, if you're going to have housing, then you're going to want some parks, and then, okay, how do you access the parks, and what should be in them, and, just all those types of things. How do we go about ensuring that those things that we think are important for a good quality of life are in there?
I think there are a couple different layers. For example, acreage of parks is typically tied to population, a ratio of X many acres per 1,000 residents and whatnot. So when you allow for the population to be increased, the general plan as it's written would require some additional parkland for those residents. So some of those things are built in already. Some of the things that are more qualitative, I think, again, you just basically have to take a policy that has intent language, to maximize trail opportunities or whatnot. And it is basically a subjective exercise to go through, again, of having those markers as things you're looking for. And then really as you just go through the analysis of how does the plan, where's the trail access, how, where are the bike trails, where's the PED connections. And so it is somewhat of a qualitative exercise because, again, the general plan policies are somewhat, for the most part, aspirational.
Yes.
And that's part of your decision ultimately to gauge how that plan complies with those community aspirations as set forth in the general plan.
Okay. All right. Thanks, John.
I have no comments.
Madison.
No, I don't have any comments or questions.
Great, thank you. One thing that we did have in the goals for Measure JJ was that the development would be energy, net zero. And so that does tie into what the public comment section was made, that's things we need to look at as we go forward with a specific plan. And when the developer comes forward with a plan, all those issues of park and energy and traffic are all going to be revisited and nailed down. This also doesn't negate the comments that we made about the deficiencies in the prior EIR, where we're still looking for some answers on the geology and the toxicology reports that are going to come later when we get a more specific plan and about closure of the landfill. So this is a good start to set some of the ground rules, change and make this consistent with the rest of our general plan. This is a public hearing, so if there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this issue, we'd welcome you now. And seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And then,
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Great. Thank you. And then if we have any discussions.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-1?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Do we need it for general plan? Oh. Okay, all right.
I think
That's it.
we did it.
That's good.
And then that moves us on to new business. which is consider introduction of ordinance 648, waiving the first reading, harassment of animals. And I did ask originally that this be taken off the consent agenda, just because I wasn't sure what it was going to be about, and I thought that if we are introducing a new ordinance, that the public should get a little brief warning about it before we move forward. So, staff report, please.
Sure, Honorable Mayor, Member Tem, council members. I completely understand wanting to pull it off. It's got an odd-sounding name, so we get the early reveal on your screen too. So, but that's okay. So let me tell you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what we're really going after. So what we are doing is taking existing Fish and Game Code and incorporating into the Brisbane Municipal Code. And that's why it's got such a weird title, because in the California Code of Regulations, this paragraph is entitled Harassment of Animals, and we're incorporating it in. So why are we doing it? Well, the reason we are doing it is, number one, it makes it a little bit easier for our officers to enforce, and more importantly, if you enforce it under the California Fish and Game Code, it becomes a misdemeanor on the violator's record, and it never goes away. So if someone gets cited for it, and then 10 years later they have to get fingerprinted for a job or some other reason, it shows up as a misdemeanor on their record. When we incorporate it into our municipal code, and in particular in the section we put it in, the violation is now an administrative citation. So it makes it much less painful for our citizens. What are we going after? What we are trying to do is change the behavior of well-intentioned but misguided individuals who are feeding non-domestic animals. And as this slide came up, we're going to talk about the first set of them. But as I was considering this, it's one of those things, it's almost a little peculiar. I'm probably not the only one who noticed that when we think about the small rodent creatures, has it occurred to anybody else that we judge them based on the presence or lack of fur on their tail?
Yes.
Because if it's a rat, you're like, ew. If it's a possum, you go, ew. But if you put fur on their tail, you think, oh my God, that ground squirrel is so cute, I have to feed him. And unfortunately, when you do that, you create an overpopulation of ground squirrels, and they start to do the type of damage that you're seeing on your screen out there. Our marina is getting torn up as a result of this, and this is not the first time we've tried to go after it. 15 years ago, we started putting owl boxes and raptor boxes out there because we were trying to control the population of both gophers and ground squirrels, and I couldn't come up with the video, but that long ago, we had a video of a very cheeky gopher who was taking on a red hawk. And unfortunately for him, notwithstanding his enthusiasm, the way of nature took over, and the red hawk eventually did succeed in its task.
So you're saying the birds aren't working anymore?
The birds have really we don't really have enough birds to get rid of as many of the ground squirrels and gophers as we have. And as you know, we follow an IPM, an integrated pesticide management program, so we don't do poisoning out there, so we're restricted to trapping, and we're trying to get people to stop feeding them. So I'll go through some of these slides quickly. There's a nice hole that's being dug right next to a fire hydrant. You can see that patch there, which is where the repair has been completed at the promenade from previous one. You can see we're starting to undermine the docks, and this is all ground squirrel activity. They're tearing the heck out of that as we go on. And in this picture here, I'm showing you everything but the squirrel. You see that nice big hole next to the concrete runner of there. So it's just a bloody mess. And we need to get people to stop doing it, and we don't want to put misdemeanors on their records, but we would like to get them cited when we need to. The other animal that we are going after is pigeons. There are a couple of places where we have huge flocks of pigeons that are being fed. This is birds on a wire, right? This is right across from Bayshore Boulevard. The location it's at, when I got here 20 years ago, we used to call it the Hitachi Overlook, because that building in the background, this is as you come off of 426A, the Brisbane Cow Palace exit. There's that big curve. That used to be it was marqueed as the Hitachi building because they were the primary tenant at the time. Now I guess we call it the curve. But people go in here, and because we've got this area that we fenced off to stop people from dumping, we're having some success with that. People aren't dumping, but then people are using it as a feeding ground. And if you go by there in the afternoon about 4 o'clock, it looks like we've got a bloody pigeon cage going on.
Why are they choosing to do that right there?
They are bringing sacks of bird seed to that location every day. and feeding them
It's the most random place.
every day.
It's not like a park. It's just the side of the road.
Well-intentioned but misguided.
Now I know why I see those birds there all the time.
Yeah, they're always
Point that
there.
out to my
Yeah, because somebody's
There's-
feeding them.
There's a
They're
2:30
always sit
feeder.
there. They're never down
There's a
that
guy
way or
that
up
comes
this
by
way.
every day at
You
2:30
must
and
have been feeding them for
A long
like
time.
30
been a
years.
while.
he drops a
Well, it's been since
20-pound
the fence went up, sir.
I
We've got a
think I
spot
saw
down
that
at the
one
marina.
day,
But
so
those
that going on, and I was
been
like,
out there a
what
while.
the heck?
And we've
every day,
actually
a 20-pound sack of birds.
we've actually had one accident occur out there where the gentleman was coming off the off ramp, and he had transitioned over to the number one lane, the one closest to the median, and the flock took. The way he said it was the flock took off in front of him, so it startled him, so he hit his brake. The second car didn't see him hit his brake. The third car didn't see the second car, and so then all of a sudden we've got a 3-car pileup. So
Oh, my God.
we would like to introduce this ordinance. We would like to eventually be able to enforce it so that we're doing an administrative citation. I'm happy to take questions. That's the end of my presentation.
May I make a comment here?
Sure.
Just so the public knows, all of that bird seed that is not eaten by the pigeons is encouraging the
Right.
proliferation
Of
of rodents
Yeah.
at an alarming rate.
You're absolutely correct, ma'am. And I thought you were going to cover the other point too, because I know you've been involved with the feral cat population. But I want to point out for those people that haven't read the staff report, this does not apply to feral cats under the Fish and Game interpretations. They consider the typical house cat to be a domesticated animal, whether it's a pet or feral. So this doesn't apply to people feeding cats.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So could we post some signs in these areas, just letting people know, hey,
We have, ma'am.
when we adopt this ordinance, if and
Oh, you
when
mean
we adopt this
we're
ordinance,
going to have the $100 citation?
yeah, this will be a misdemeanor or whatever.
Well, I think we could put up a sign that says $100 citation. Sure, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time out at the marina in the parking lots. A month or so ago, I was in the parking lot, and a squirrel was being very cheeky, and a hawk came and grabbed it and proceeded to fly up to the light standard and devour the rodent. And so it's pretty obvious that there's a large rodent problem there. This also is going to discourage residents from feeding raccoons, possums, skunks, all those other
Coyotes.
wild critters that should be left to fend for themselves, and hopefully get some element of control on that population without using rodenticides.
There are a lot of people who feed raccoons too, and I'm just like, why? Stop doing that.
Yes.
It's encouraging more coyotes too.
Mm-hmm.
And please don't use rodenticides, because the unintended consequences are
The
that the
birds.
red-tailed hawks eat the rats that have eaten the rodenticides, and the owls do the same, and then they die too.
Yes. So, with that, is there any member of the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing no members of the public who wish to speak, can I get a motion to approve Ordinance 648?
I make a motion to approve Ordinance 648, harassment of animals.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And then we go to staff report, city manager's report on upcoming activities.
Okay, so the first item that I'd like to speak to is the Baylands update. Put a short memo in your packet for this evening. As you know, the applicant came before you in November with a presentation. They have subsequently started to submit information for a notice of preparation that will be sent out once we have a completed project description that identifies the topics to be studied in the forthcoming EIR. From there, we will be holding a scoping meeting, probably in this room. That's done with our EIR consultant, and that's sent out to the general public. There's notification that we've done on that, and that will help define the scope of the EIR work that will be done for the upcoming application. We anticipate the time frame for this to be in the next couple months, February and March of this year, and that all the comments that come in will be categorized. They will be in the official record as well as any comments at the hearing. Once that is done, then the EIR process will start. We anticipate that being going through the spring, summer, and probably into the fall before that is actually completed. We're anticipating that UPC will then, somewhere around that period of time, will be making their formal specific plan submittal. And to that end, there has been some discussion at the Baylands subcommittee about having some potential workshops, either around specific subject areas or opportunities for city council members to identify subjects of interest to them. As you know, there are a number of subject matters that have been working their way through various subcommittees of the council. For example, the infrastructure subcommittee had a fairly lengthy conversation about elevations a couple weeks ago, and we expect to continue that conversation over the next few months. UPC is going to be submitting some material for us to do further analysis on that. The sustainability issues have been dealt with by the subcommittee, the Baylands subcommittee. So there's and we have the whole education issue that's in the education subcommittee. Our planning consultant, MIG, is working on a template of types of issues that we might want to examine, and then we'll be bringing that back to the subcommittee and then ultimately to the council. So at this point, we're not recommending any specific workshops or the timing of those, but we just kind of want to let everybody know that there is that's kind of the direction that we're moving. I would think that the workshop numbers would be probably no more than 2 or 3, and the purpose of them would be to provide some guidance to the applicant prior to them submitting their specific plan, so that we deal with some of these issues up front as opposed to at the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the purpose of that process. So with that, unless there's any questions, I'll move on.
One comment I'd like to add to that was members of the residents of Brisbane and interested public members have gotten some letters from the Department of Toxic Control about landfill closure and about concerns with that. And there's been chatter on Facebook that they are not coming from the city, and so people thought it was a ruse or fake. Do we have confirmation that those letters that went out to the residents are actually from DTSC?
Yeah, so that's your next screen up there. That is the letter that was sent out by the Department of Toxic and Substance Control. We actually have these available on our website in 3 different languages. And yes, they are from the state of California's agency. The state of California, through this department, is attempting to get community feedback in terms of issues and certain issues around civic engagement. There is an application by UPC for what they call a remedial action plan that would set the stage for the remediation of what is now called San Mateo operating unit. It's basically the northwest site part of the Baylands site, just south of where Schleglock is in San Francisco. So this is legitimate. It is from the DTSC.
I remember at BBCAG, Asha had said that they wanted to do more community outreach and get feedback. So we had discussed at the BBCAG level that this would be happening. And Asha, for people who don't know, she's always at our BBCAG meetings representing DTSC. And I believe that there's really genuine intention there to engage with the community and get feedback and really be proactive about addressing the community's concerns relative to toxins in that area. So I think this is really great that they're doing that.
I just wanted to make sure that the public knew that this wasn't a ruse and it was something that we do want to have their participation and get their questions answered as best we can.
So the next item is the Mothers of Brisbane shop, which will happen on January 24th and January 25th at the Mission Blue Center. And there's donations and opportunities for people to purchase. Then the Lions Club will be doing their celebration of stars and holiday decorations on Tuesday, January 28th at 6 p.m. at the Mission Blue Center. That's slideshow, tasty bites, and drink. Brisbane School District registration for the 2020-2021 school year starts on Monday, February 3rd. New location this year for the sign-ups will be actually at Mission Blue Center, 475 Mission Blue Drive here in Brisbane from 9 a.m. to 4:30. The annual Artist Evening of Sharing will be taking place Saturday, February 8th at 7:30, and I'm pretty sure that's at Mission Blue.
I'm sure it is. It says it at the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just to remind everybody that we will be closing our community pool from February 15th to March 1st for major maintenance. This includes the showers and some of the countertops and items that we need to get in shape for the upcoming summer season. And then the annual Lions Club Crab Dinner fundraiser will be taking place on Saturday, February 22nd at 6 p.m., again at the Mission Blue Center. And we had a very successful cornhole tournament championship, I think in November, I believe. So we'll be repeating that. Parks and Recreation Department is sponsoring this. It will be February 28th at the Community Park Gazebo. That's a Friday evening. Starts at 7 o'clock. For individuals interested in putting together a team, contact the Parks and Recreation office at the City Hall here, and registration is open until February 21st. And then finally, the Spring Fling from the Brisbane Village Helping Hands will be on Saturday, March 14th at the Sunrise Center from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. with a barbershop quartet.
So that's different than the spring thing.
Yeah.
Yes, Spring Fling and Spring Thing are two different things.
Okay.
And the barbershop quartet. And the barbershop quartet are actually fantastic.
Oh, I have an announcement. So I was contacted by the History Channel the other day, and a casting director for American Pickers was wanting to know if I knew of anybody in the area that they could stop by and meet with them and see about purchasing some of their stuff. If people aren't familiar, American Pickers is a show on History Channel where these two guys travel around the country on like a road trip. They have a store and they buy like old cars, old motorcycles, and just toys and just interesting things that they then take back to their store. And so they're coming to the Bay Area in March, and so they're reaching out to people in the community to help link them with people that they could stop by and check out their stuff. So I really have not been able to come up with anybody at the top of my head, but I thought it would be great just to announce the community. If you know somebody or you are that somebody, let me know so I can forward your information. And I think hopefully we can get this out in the blast and somebody can try to get somebody to post it for me on Residence. But I would love for the show to stop in Brisbane because sometimes they kind of profile the community, and we would just be the perfect place for them to come and visit. So anyway, that's my update.
Great.
Happy to post it for you.
Okay, cool.
Great.
There you go.
So that moves us on to mayor council members, and we'll start with countywide assignments and subcommittee reports. Cliff, do you want to start us on this?
Sure. Let's see. So Madison and I had a couple of Baylands subcommittee meetings, one of which was what we discussed tonight, so no reason to go into that. Clay touched upon some of the sustainability aspects of the Baylands. This document here, we all got this, right? Clay, all the council members received the draft.
No, I think we just sent that out. I mean, that's very much in draft form. I think we just sent it out to the subcommittee at this point.
Okay. So, so we had an opportunity to look at UPC's draft sustainability report. We made some comments on it. In it's pretty vague and doesn't talk about a lot of details or give very good examples. There's a lot of exit ramps for saying that things aren't feasible, right? In the report, I'm going to give you just one little example. I did cherry pick it, so probably not very fair to UPC, but it's under zero waste, and it's trying to address our sustainability framework, and so it's businesses' best practices, and it says all businesses that move into the development may be encouraged to engage best practices to reduce the amount of waste generated on an annual basis. So, I mean, that kind of just gives you that, kind of that direction of may be encouraged, right? I mean, that's, and so, like Clay was saying, I mean, it is really, up to us to really find out what are those things that are super important to us and work with our community members and then put it back onto UPC.
And encourage is definitely different than required also. May is different than shall.
Right. Best practices should be strived for, right? Just like, hey, we'll encourage you to maybe do it.
We'll encourage.
Right. So, anyways. And I know we had another, I saw there was a list of subcommittees.
I can do the one we had. The other one we had.
Which was that?
Which was affordable housing.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
So we had gotten a complaint from a resident who lived out at the mobile home park about an increase in rent and how we should investigate whether having rent control for our mobile home park would be appropriate. And so the Affordable Housing Subcommittee met, and we actually ended up meeting with the owner of the property and a representation from like the Mobile Home Association, or whatever it was, and kind of explaining why they had recently increased rents. Apparently it had been like 20 years or something insane in which they had not raised rents at all. And there was a previous owner, an elderly person, and they really did not want to raise rents for any of the tenants living out there. But then that person passed away, and the new owner realized that along with foregoing increases in rent, a lot of capital improvements had been delayed as well, and there was a necessity to upgrade, like the laundry facility and I think the water infrastructure out there, the gas infrastructure, or something. Some kind of
built a new laundry room and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and so they and then also to kind of catch up a little bit with current pricing, they did I think around a 15% increase, and we talked about the nature of the park and who lives out there, and after speaking with them, we came to the conclusion that the subcommittee would not recommend moving forward with looking at rent control for the mobile home park, and we kind of left it at that. Do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, it was very good, explaining about what transpired during that meeting, and I totally agree with it. We just felt that the owner of the mobile home park was a good landlord, right, and did represent or tried to provide a professional and respectable engagement with the tenants, and the improvements that were done to the site were significant, and it seemed appropriate for the increase. So yeah, it seemed like a good situation that should continue as is, and not have us kind of meddle in their affairs.
Yeah. So, I think that's it for my subcommittees.
Clark, you want to talk about mud?
No, you can't. I'm muttered out.
Clark and I met for the infrastructure subcommittee, and we had UPC come to us because they are interested in an opportunity to procure some bay mud that they will need to do landfill closure and to do closure on their other sites. They were looking for direction and approval to go ahead and import more soils. And we gave them direction that we would like to see comparable reductions in soils rather than increase in soils. And so that sort of morphed into some discussion of heights of the piles and how much they're going to need for final grade on the Baylands. And no commitments were made, but we're waiting for them to come back and with a better plan on how they can achieve bringing in more soil and getting rid of soil with testing. Is that about sum it up?
Yeah, staff is going to work with them on coming up something to rearrange our MOU, and the city attorney's involved in that. And that should come back to council, right?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it back to the subcommittee first, but we'll bring it back to council.
Yeah.
And we did actually, we brought the deal points to UPC just to let you know, and they did agree in concept to those. So we have to get it in writing and then get the lawyers looking at it, and then we'll bring it to the subcommittee and then to the council.
Just as a side note, I think that Clark will agree with me that we did not want to see increase in dirt piles there, and so we want to be very cautious about any additional soils coming in. And also the net zero, and also to be tested so that we don't have untested soils coming onto the site. So we wanted to be very clear about that and have very firm, rules in the new memorandum of understanding that we'll be reviewing.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Was there a conversation about length of time that the soil, if they were to bring it in, like how long it would stay there? Because you don't want to create a mountain.
Oh no, we talked a lot about the Brisbane mountain. Yes,
we're going to use that soil. Just give us.
Well, it's bay mud. It would be used as the cap, but that mud has to stay moist. Otherwise, it just dries up and it becomes dirt. And it's to their advantage to keep it moist, and so they think they have a plan in place in order to do that. If I'm correct, if staff, because we asked about that. So, what are you going to do? Just set it out there? I mean, no, that's not what they want to do. Is they want to cover it to make sure that it stays moist, because there's no benefit to them if it dries out.
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, a mountain is a mountain, whether it's got grass on it or dirt or it's covered in plastic.
Totally agree. And those were concerns that we made very clear to them and to our staff, that we have concerns about that pile growing in any fashion.
But right now, we allow them up to a certain height. So if they take some out and puts them in and it's within that height limit.
But right now they have an import. They cannot import.
Right, but what I'm saying is if they export and then import bay mud to replace it, we still allow them to have up to a certain height.
Correct.
So I don't think we have anything right now that states that the dirt cannot stay in that place if it's under that height limit for a certain amount of time. I don't think.
Yeah, but when we allowed for that certain height limit, that was when it was an import-export business, and then it became an import business. So then things changed, and.
But I don't think that we have anything
We're
on the
going
books
into
about that.
discussion about this, and I think that we're crossing a line
All
here.
right.
But just to say that we are very cognizant of those issues.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you want me to announce this, or was this an invitation?
No, it's just for you guys.
Oh, okay.
So I have a question for staff about something subcommittee related. Madam Mayor, would you mind if I just
No, I think
asked a question? We had a workshop earlier as a council to look at our subcommittee assignments and kind of determine if we wanted to stay on those or shift those around, and we also wanted to clean the list up to determine, some of these are kind of outdated and not necessary. And there's one that I realized I had noted on here that might not be necessary anymore, and I just wanted to confirm with staff if that was correct. We have the library stakeholders group, and I'm wondering if that was created specifically for going through the library construction phase, or if it's just always been something that we've had library related. Because
I think that was one of the ones that I had suggested you no longer.
Oh, the 20. Okay, then I must
Because you
have
are
missed that on that
correct.
list.
That was really to help guide the library building process, and that's no longer needed.
Okay, perfect. I missed that when you said that was part of your list. Okay, great. That's it.
Speaking of the library, Clay, any updates?
It's still there. It's still being worked on, and it will open this year.
I love all those
That
specifics. So.
And my only meeting was the Emergency Services JPA board, which was canceled. So there's my update.
Well, that makes it easier. Okay, so we go to the City Council meeting schedule and scheduling the City Council goal-setting workshop, and I will try not to roll my eyes on that.
Maybe I can help you out a little bit. This is certainly
Sure.
not something that you have to do. We didn't do one last year, in large part because we kind of had our agenda set for us with some of the Baylands stuff. I'm not aware of any real compelling need to do this year, but just wanted to put it out there in case you wanted to.
Okay. So there's just the cancellation of the February 6th meeting is the change?
Yeah, at this point, we see a very light calendar. We got a couple of things that are coming forward for the February 20th meeting, but if you wish to cancel the 6th, I think we could do that.
So
moved.
Well, wait. Is the February 13th meeting different? Because
that's a training meeting.
Okay, because I did not bring my calendar with me, but I have scheduled a vacation during
that time.
During February, and I will need to make sure that I'm available for that meeting because it didn't show up on my, every other week rotation.
So that training is for the AB 1234 ethics training, and I think everybody here except for Councilmember Cunningham is due for the training.
I took it. I gave you the form.
For 2. Oh yeah, and then you were able to provide that.
Okay,
so only,
that
only
I don't.
The 3.
That's only if needed.
Can I take that online? Or do I have
you
to
can do it online as well? This is the
The
first
don't-
time we'll be offering it in-house with our legal counsel.
So that's like optional.
Option. It's an option for you.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't have it on my calendar.
I have a question about a date. July 2nd seems awfully close to July 4th.
Yeah. If you want to go ahead and just cancel that, you're correct. We always try to cancel that first one in July.
And then are we planning to take a break in August, or is it too soon to tell?
At this point, I think we could, if you want to just identify those two dates as canceled, and if we need to come back later and schedule them, we'll let you know. But right now, I don't see a need. We've been doing this for several years, so I think we can do that.
Okay, thank
And I will not be here for the April 16th meeting. It's our annual business conference.
Well, as long as we've got 4, we're good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a conflict. On January 30th, I'm going to be out of the country. So, and I did plan to come back on February 5th, so I could make the meeting on the 6th. So, if it was okay with the council, and I know, I guess we've already sent out information to our potential committee and commission members, but perhaps if we can move it to the 6th.
Oh, and we can. Oh, I see what you're saying.
What do you want to do, Cliff?
Move the training.
The interviews of our committee and commission members.
I thought we had all agreed on that day.
We did, yeah. You know what? I didn't put it in my calendar, and that's my bad. So it's up to you. I mean, I'm.
Do you feel it's really? Have you reviewed the names of the people on the list?
I have not.
Okay. Perhaps if you review the names on the list, if we can keep that date, unless.
And then
And look at their applications, and perhaps you can give any comments to staff who might be able to forward that to us.
Is that appropriate, Tom?
I don't think you can vote.
You can't vote, but you can certainly submit the materials.
So we would need 3 council members to support the applicants then? Because what if we're split 50-50? So is there item C is update on city council commission and committee applications. So is that I'm interested to hear if we have enough to fill all the seats, or you're anticipating we need to extend, because sometimes that happens where we haven't gotten enough, and so you come back and you're like, we need another 30 days to solicit applicants. Do we have enough applicants at this time?
So I've provided you a list of the special meeting agenda for Tuesday, January 30th. It's the draft, and it lists all the applications that were received. I think at this point, for B, the Parks and Recreation Commission, there were 4 terms that were up, and we received only 2 applications. But the commission itself can be a 5-member commission, up to 7.
It may be helpful if we also get a list of the current people who are seated on this and whose terms are up, so we know what the balance will be left on the different commissions.
I also think this is like a 2-day. This looks like a 2-day interview schedule to me.
I had talked to staff about the length of time that we were going to need, and whether existing members who are reapplying for their positions would need to be interviewed. And I did think that scheduling a 10-minute interview for existing members, who are reapplying, would be appropriate. So because we have a better idea of what they're contributing to that commission.
These are all 10-minute though. I don't know. To me, I think the last time we did this, we were really good. We were really on it. But in the past, it's gone we've had it go 20 minutes on average on some of these, and then it really pushes the schedule. I don't know that I'm going to be able to do 15 interviews in an evening and then discuss at 9:00 at night. I don't know.
I thought we broke it up into 2 separate meetings.
I think we did too.
Yeah. And then then we had voted on some of them when we came back.
So maybe we could do all the ones that have, I don't know if this would work, but people who are reapplying, maybe we could do all of those people on the 30th, because Cliff has already interviewed all those people before. Or no, could he still vote if he came back then, or no, because he didn't? And then we could do all the people who've never interviewed the second time on the 6th when Cliff is here.
You going to be here, Terry, on the 6th?
It's on my calendar, so yes, I should be here on the 6th. Mine was more the later part of the month.
Okay.
That I had concerns. And actually, I'm pretty sure that I'm coming back on March 4th. So I'm pretty sure I cleared all these other meetings. I just wasn't sure about the 13th because that was a
So,
a
Madison,
special
your
meeting.
suggestion is to do B, C, and E on the 30th?
No, my suggestion is do all the people who've applied in the past on the 30th, because Cliff has already interviewed those people in the past. And then all the people who've never applied for one of these positions, to do those on the 6th once Cliff is here. So would he be able to vote then if he was part of the interviews for new people?
That's 3 people.
He does not have to attend the interview.
Well, Jason Noonan and Darius was
3 people.
There's
Michael Barnes,
Dan Carter.
Dan Carter, and Beth Grossman.
Yep.
So
5.
I don't know.
So who on the Public Art Advisory Committee is not reapplying?
Dan Carter, because he's now applying for open space.
That's right, he was on that before.
And now Beth is applying instead. So Beth is new. Dan Carter's new for open space. So is Michael Barnes for Parks and Rec. And then we have Jason and Darius for planning.
So say what your proposal is again.
Okay. My proposal is we interview all the people we've already interviewed in the past, people who are applying for reappointment. So those are people that Cliff has already interviewed as well, be when they applied the first time for their first term. And then all the people who we've never interviewed before, we do those people on the 6th when Cliff can be available. I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with a solution.
I mean, it's different. You know, I don't mind trying new things.
Do we need 7 people on the Park and Rec Commission?
We did it we had 5 when I was on it.
Right. Do we need 7? That's my question.
I think
your point is that it gives us more time to actually interview them instead of this 10 minutes of like some of the folks we don't even know.
Well, also the thing is that, you know, we're going to have to pretty much all agree on all these people because we're going to be down a person. And if we do it on the 30th, and I think that's going to be challenging to try to, you know, reschedule everyone for a different day. But I also think this should be broken into 2 days anyways, because I don't know that I'm going to be able to sit through 15 interviews if they're all just 10 minutes, which I highly doubt will happen from people we've never even interviewed before. We want to get to know them. And then we're going to have a discussion, which sometimes that takes a while if we're not all on the same page. And if we can't come to a consensus, Cliff is going to need to come and interview all those people with us again because he won't be able to vote retroactively, right? So I can just see this devolving into like an issue if we're not all in agreement, right? Because then Cliff can't come back and vote if he wasn't.
The silence is deafening. So
He can vote even if he didn't interview them.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
If that's when we vote.
And vote.
If that's when we vote, but if we vote when he's not present, if we try to do this all on the 30th, and we're not in agreement, then what happens?
it's a push. 2-2.
It's a push.
Comes back again.
So you're going to be back for a vote to see if you can break the tie.
So what are you proposing then, Madison, is that on the 30th, you interview all the people who are already on the commission or the committee, and then on the 6th, we finish the interviewing with the new applicant, and then we make the final vote on the 6th.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. Dom, is that legal?
It's legal, yes.
Okay.
Okay, no, I'm good with it. I'm ready. It's just I wasn't hearing from anybody else, so I was going to give another alternative. So.
Oh, what's the other?
What was your alternative?
I'm open to it.
Yeah, well, I said it on the we just do the what I call academic B, D, and E on the 30th, right? And we don't have to vote to put them in position, but just do the interviews, and then come back on the 6th and do A and C or A and D, and then we vote on everything on the 6th.
Why B, C, and E? Why did you break it out like that?
Huh?
Why did you break it out like that?
Well, if you read it, it's like
Because those are for 2.
you got 2 applicants for 4 positions on B. You got 3 applicants or 2 applicants for 2 positions on C, and you got 3 applicants for 3 positions on E. And then,
But that doesn't mean we're going to approve that
Well,
everyone is appropriate for those positions.
Here's the problem. Here's a problem. You guys, I'm looking at the.
I'm good with
expiration
Madison's.
date.
I mean, I don't want to stretch it out.
Okay, so Park and Rec Commission, we would have to approve both applicants just to get to 5. And so I didn't get an answer to my question. Do we need 7?
No.
No, the city council has, the rule is you have, the Parks and Recreation Commission is 5 to 7 members.
But
You
then
can
we
have
would
anywhere
have to
from 5 to
both
7.
those.
Well, not necessarily, because remember, there was a time before when we had interviewed people who really resonated with us, but we didn't necessarily think that they would have been a good fit for, let's say, planning. Like one time we got 10 applicants for planning or something. And so some of those people, we said, hey, I think you would be really great on Complete Streets. And those people then did have an interest in being on Complete Streets and open space, and we ended up filling other vacancies because we felt those people would be great in that capacity. And I think there has been a time where we may have not been thrilled with all the applicants, and so the commission had, let's say, 4 people or 3 people, and it just went on for a time. And we said, hey, let's open it up. We would like to get more applicants. Or, hey, we don't want to appoint to this one. We want to have another 30 days to see if we can get more applicants and then interview all of those at one time. So I think we can kind of do it however we want.
Yeah.
Right?
I like what you suggested, Madison. If the council's good with that, I think we can move on.
I'm good with it. I just came up with an alternative.
My only concern is we're going to be interviewing people out of context for hips and skip on out of context for what the position that we're interviewing for. But that I think we can work around.
Yeah, and we've interviewed for all these so many times. We've conducted these interviews so many times that I think we're like professionals at this point on that.
I think we need 30 more days to get some more applicants. There.
Can we do? I sort of agree that we're a little short on applications here.
And I.
Or certain.
Well, I brought this up when this all went through. I said, during the holidays, people are not interested. I think the way these applications go out is like the beginning of the holiday season. Only the very, very interested people are on it. And I think we need some more time, and I think we need more applicants.
I agree that there are some of these sections that could use more applicants.
Well, I don't want to just appoint somebody because we need to put bums in seats.
I agree.
Okay, punt.
All right.
Okay, so that's another option.
How about
right?
if we come back to you on the February 20th meeting? We'll try to set a time then, and we'll see how many more applicants we got.
So we'll extend it until the
Yeah,
19th.
we'll go around and bang on doors this weekend.
I'll go around and bang on doors.
Okay, all right. Maybe better if you do it.
I'm not so sure.
All right, well, that solves that.
Okay.
The only, and if you want to put this off to another day, we can do that, but we're thinking of a one-day budget workshop like we did the last time, 2 years ago,
Yeah.
on a Saturday.
No.
Well, we could do it on a Thursday night. It just, it did,
Do it on
I thought it
February
worked really
2nd.
well.
February 2nd.
I don't know if I'll quite be ready by February
not gonna be
2nd for
ready.
the budget.
February
February
6th.
30.
We were thinking about June, which is plenty of time to think about this.
How about February 6th?
February 6th.
No, this is for the budget.
Stuart's having a fit.
No, this is for the budget when we present the
Yeah,
budget to you for the 2
2-year
years.
budget.
End of the fiscal year
The
end.
nap time.
Yeah, we do this in
But they want to do it on a Saturday.
I know, but it's got to be around June.
It's got to be sometime in June.
we did this on a Saturday 2 years ago.
I know.
Can we do it on a Thursday night? But then
We can, if
we
you
got
want
all
to do it on.
kinds of committees on Thursday nights.
It's hard to get through in one night. That's why the Saturday we can usually get
It
it
can
through
be
in one
briefer.
day.
How about we don't do it at all?
That's fine. I mean, if you don't want to go through the budget process,
I really don't want to spend a Saturday doing it.
All right.
I'm just gonna
Okay, we'll-
We will
fine.
come back with Plan B.
we'll
Yeah.
come back with a
Plan
Thursday.
B.
Good idea.
That's our plan tonight. Is just give us whatever the plan B is for everything.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry, Stuart.
I know we're always so thrilled with budget hearings.
I am.
I know you are.
That's Stuart's shining moment, man.
Okay.
Only one that smiles. Hey, I always appreciate your work, Stuart. You know, you do a great job putting that together. I mean,
Okay.
you know, I'll never forget when, you know, we went into that recession and everybody was with Lehman Brothers and putting their money in there. And years before that, you counseled us. I don't think I would do that, you know, that, you know, I would diversify more. And I think we ended up losing, $6,800 or something in total. And that was only because we were forced to put that money in with the county pool and they lost their, you know what. And then, no, so I do appreciate the work you do, Stuart, and staff, so. I'll
Of
never
course
forget-
we do.
Well, I never forget it. I mean, you know, that's important stuff because a lot of cities got into some serious financial trouble because of what happened and, you know, and how they were invested in those pools and, you know, and thought they were protected, but they weren't.
Okay, moving on. 2, written communications. We received a letter from Michelle Salmon regarding the no left turn on Bayshore from San Bruno. We received a letter from JC regarding SB 50, and we received a letter from Emil Spickert regarding the Thomas Avenue apartments, and we received a letter from Dana Dilworth regarding the mitigated negative declaration on the Guadalupe Channel Erosion Control Project. With that, it brings us to oral communication number 2. I see 2 audience members. Would either of you like to speak on an item not on the agenda?
It's staff and a consultant.
I'm just being fair. And so that brings us to adjournment. And
Make a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Thank you.